All right, guys, so you already know we got my boy Luke in the house. I will allow him to introduce himself.
You know a little bit about myself. I've done multiple eight figures in e-commerce and then rolled over basically every penny of my net worth into crypto in 2020. 40x my net worth, launched NFT projects. I made about 9 million with NFTs, flipping them and selling them. So that was a pretty good venture as well. Now just building a Capital Club, which is going to be the largest decentralized entrepreneurial network on planet Earth. You know, you've been in the entrepreneur space like me, and you know, we see that there's like a lot of needs and that we all share, whether it's, you know, your business manager gets banned.
Sure.
Like there's a million scams out there. So how do you go to a place where like that's mitigated and that's trusted? So
what's kind of like, I know you said you're going to Albania. What are you guys kind of doing there? What's the purpose of that Capital Club event?
Yeah, so the first thing, the reason we picked Albania was it's uncomfortable to get there. I think uncomfort is something that a lot of people run from. Usually when you feel discomfort and you're uncomfortable, it means that you're in a process of growth or you're in a process of development or something's breaking down in order to hopefully resurrect something else. So I wanted to go to an environment where people could experience what it is to live a life of high-end luxury outside of America, right? We're talking about, for example, like Miami, we're talking about the prices of like rent, for example, and we're just like, damn, like somebody's out here paying $8,000 for an apartment.
Exactly.
And it makes absolutely no sense. Whereas, bro, you go to Bali with $8,000, you get an oceanfront villa, you're like fucking balling. I want to be able to teach a lot of these entrepreneurs that are coming what it is to be an entrepreneur, successful, have Wi-Fi money, and operate in different dimensions in different places in the world. The next thing I will say is, to me, it's extremely important to be like location free. And I think a lot of people like bind themselves down with cars, mortgages, all these things, and they weigh themselves down, so they're tied to shit.
They can't really like be able to flow in a certain way as if you weren't like holding like those liabilities.
Correct. So they're tied up to all this bullshit, and then you end up being in a situation where what you want to do or the freedom that you're pursuing, you're no longer slave to, let's say, a job, but now you're slave to all the bills that you have to pay because you accumulated all these fancy, nonsensical things in order to achieve something that wasn't necessary, right? So I think this idea of exposing what it is to live a multi-millionaire lifestyle in other places of the world, I think is extremely important. So that's kind of like what we're doing. Mentors, networks are super important because the system wants to make you believe that it's you against the world. Whereas the highest people in society, they don't operate individual units, they operate in conglomerates, they operate in family networks, they operate in home offices, they operate in things like that. So I think at the lowest level of society, people are very, very much isolated and alone, and they don't have kind of that network, that support system, that group, that club that they can access. So having all those things in mind is kind of why we formed Capital Club. Millionaires know how to make money, and billionaires know how to make other people money.
For sure.
If I want to win in life, and the strategy, and I'm writing a book on it right now, which is how to get rich. You know, like
really?
It's teaching people how to get rich, and it's not like this fairy tale nonsensical, listen to what Luke is saying. No, there are foundational principles. For sure. And history repeats itself, and you have to just study the lives of a lot of different successful people, and you can start recognizing patterns. And I started recognizing these patterns, and I recognize these patterns with crypto, I recognize them with NFTs. You can have what is called kind of like a futurist mindset in your ability to take data sets and be able to kind of foresee or have a good guess of what could happen in the world. I know that this is true because of Ray Dalio. Do you know Ray Dalio?
Yeah.
He writes Principles.
Yeah, I read one of the books from recommendations, Changing World Order.
And the guy in the beginning of the book, Ray Dalio, says, I have, you know, a group of researchers, and we research all this information, all this stuff, and we create these theses as to how the world works. The financial system, how these people will operate in these networks, are so crazy. I'll share with you two things. The first one, Ray Dalio, he owns Ancestry.com.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So you go into the terms of and conditions, and they own all the DNA samples. They own all like the genetic code. They own basically all your historical like evidence, everything that you submit to them, they own.
It's actually really crazy.
Yeah. So now you start seeing this guy that runs the biggest hedge fund in the world now also has access to the biggest kind of network of data sets of human history.
That's actually really
so insane. He has that, and then on the other side, I think he has a $15 billion net worth himself.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But then he also talks about in his book your ability to foresee things based off of things that have happened in the past. And that goes back to tying into the point of why did I do Capital Club? Like what brought me to that point? Well, what brought me to that point was I started seeing data sets in entrepreneurs that were matching, and I realized, well, I need to build something that that is going to be a support system for me. I'm a multimillionaire, I'm a successful entrepreneur, I've been to 40 countries, I'm in my mid-20s, I fucking crushed it. I'm like, well, I have these needs, this, and this. Well, instead of waiting for somebody to create it, I'm going to create that experience for myself. And I know that people, as they are on their come up, the resources and the essential elements that I need in order to get to the next level are going to be available to them. So that breaks down into 3 pillars.
Sure.
You're going to have education, which is, the foundation for any good decision is your ability to have knowledge. The second one is going to be services, right? So you've probably been scammed in the digital space.
Oh yeah.
Right? So I've been scammed. Everybody's been scammed.
Everyone.
Why? Because there's no accountability. 1, 2, there isn't really a trusted source saying this is legit, this is false, this is good, this is bad. And there's no marketplace consensus that really exists. There's shady websites, stuff like that, but there isn't kind of like a place for club members to come and be like, this is another club member, he offers a service, and kind of having that relational aspect in business, which is why people get scammed, is because they don't have relationships. So whenever anybody comes, it's like, oh, I can do this for you. I can get your Instagram verified. They pay 20 G's. They don't get their Instagram verified. The guy blocks and disappears. What are you going to do now? Nothing. Why? Because he wasn't part of your network. He was just a scammer. That's the second part, is offering those services based off of the community. And then finally is your access, right? Which is the access that we're going to give to different money raising opportunities, different seed rounds, different events.
A lot of people have like a big like ego problem. Like they're not going to put themselves in a position to be with that people, learn different things because they just have a bigger ego.
Sometimes I wonder if it's ego, if it's ignorance. Like, are you just arrogant that you think you know what's best, or do you genuinely think you know what's best because you're actually that dumb?
I don't know which one's worse.
Yeah. So, but they all end up in the same location, which is your inability to level up. And this idea that goes back to it, right? We are wired, dude. Imagine how many class projects you did as a group versus as an individual. You were isolated most of your life as a student. Always. So now you're in the mindset of not problem solving in a network. You're problem solving as an individual unit. Because that's what you've always done. That's why you see a lot of communities where the center of like teamwork is extremely important. Your ability to bounce and navigate upon other members of the community to help you solve problems. We weren't taught that. That's why when you, as a man, you have a problem, you don't go to anybody else. You try to solve it. Why? Because you haven't been brought up and raised in a situation where you understand the value of network, because you haven't been programmed that way. So we have to reprogram and retrain people, and you need the value of networks, you need the value of mentors, you need the value of education. Most people talk about, they went to school, they didn't learn anything. Well, you need to be able to differentiate education and indoctrination.
For sure.
Indoctrination is when you are told to consume something and you basically have to memorize it by force or through a lie. But education is your ability to take information, digest it, actualize it, and really truly understand it.
Exactly.
I don't remember shit, dude, from school. Clearly it didn't work. So
that's honestly like a really crazy just thought process, and some people get it, some people don't. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But I know you talked about why it's always important to be basically comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, always being uncomfortable. What was kind of that turning point for you, where you truly understood that you were I need to do something different?
The thing is that I can't avoid discomfort. If I'm broke and I'm fat and I'm lazy, deep down, I'm gonna be uncomfortable. I'm gonna be in a situation that's miserable. Why, instead of having a situation become miserable because of my inability to act, I don't just put myself through a miserable situation, but get something out of it in return? Because it's this idea that people want something in life, but they're not willing to sacrifice anything in return. How does that make any sense? Any sort of transaction in life, anything is a give and take.
They wanted the easy way.
People want shit without anything in return. They don't want to give anything. They want $1 million, but they won't pick up a fucking book.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable. So that's also why I'm writing my book, right? I have this massive understanding of the value of learning, bro. And people won't pick up a fucking book for the life of them. They want to go out and start a business. They want to go work a job and make money. But then you ask them what is money, they don't even know. They've been working their entire life for something that they don't even know is fucking real.
It's a fact.
They're uneducated. I always talk about who the truly free are. And a quote that I always say is, the educated are truly free, because your ability to be educated on how the world works, how the system works, your ability to get forward, move forward, to have advantages, right? Because the more information you have, it's like a weapon, right? You can use it to your advantage to beat your competitor.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the person that is buying a dropshipping product and the person that's selling it. There's one difference. It's an information gap.
Oh, exactly.
Information gap equals dollars, because had the situation been flipped and the customer been the one selling to you because of that information gap, right? That exists.
Exactly.
So the information gap, and I'll talk about it in my book, is this idea of finding these different types of gaps that exist in the system that allow you to get rich. And one of them is being able to perceive that. So I think if people really center down and focus on making money, and making money doesn't mean you need to be out here making 100 grand a month. Making money for you in order for you to be in a place where you can move comfortably, maybe it's 3 grand a month.
Exactly.
Right? But you need to be able to do that in a self-sustaining way. And this bullshit ass lie that keeps coming around that, yeah, well, not everyone can make it. Sure, not everyone can make it because not everyone tries.
Exactly.
But it's not that anybody out there can't make it. If you have the right information, if you have information gaps, you have your convenience gap and so forth, and you spot these needs, you can get fucking rich. But you have to be educated, you have to have services, connections, how to move, and you need networks. That's why Capital Club's extremely important. That's why the people that come through it, these entrepreneurs, these people that want to make money, they're gonna get rich as fuck.
So if you were talking to, people watching this right now, and there's one thing that you would say, go do this right now, like what's like the one thing that someone should be like heavily focusing on if, they want to get to the similar position?
A piece of advice in order to take control of your life is you need to make a daily list. I know it sounds simple as fuck. Make a fucking daily list. And in my book, I teach specifically how I make my list. My book's not out yet. It's a simple idea of making a list. And this list needs to be an agreement that you make with yourself, which is like, if I say that I'm gonna do this today, I do this shit, period. Like what I put on that list, which is what I choose to put on there, like nobody's forcing me what I put on there. Exactly. I do that shit. And you'll start realizing self-accountability, right? You start accomplishing a lot more, and you start becoming more aware of your wins because you're like checking them off. You're like, damn, like I'm actually putting in some dubs. I'm actually doing this well. Your body doesn't know the fucking difference of making 10 grand on a trade and making 100 grand. And the second one is freedom. You need to make money. If you want freedom, you need money. And 2,000 years ago, maybe you needed fucking cows and chickens and fucking doves. And that was the currency in exchange. And the more of that you had, the wealthier you were and the more you could do. Today, it just happens to be a fake, artificially printed and inflated green dollar bill that is gonna be digitalized and they print by the trillions. That just happens to be what we use today. There's nothing inherently wrong with money, but there's a stigma around money. And when you realize that 89% of millionaires come from nothing, you start realizing that the entire messaging around money is wrong. So in order for you to become free, right, you need money. How do you get money? First, you need to know what money is, who's made a ton of it, and what have they done in order to make money, and how do you make your strategy? Based off of the strategy that you make, and then you take control of your life and you make that checklist in accordance to the objective of making money and being free, now you have a successful concoction to build a valuable life. And money is going to give you the ability and facilitate the ability to live a better life in every aspect. Your ability to take care of your family, eat healthier foods, put your kids in better schools, because why the fuck would you put them in the public school system? It makes absolutely zero sense.
And I'll link all the socials down in the description so you guys can, make sure you guys follow everything. Follow Capital Club, follow Luke on every platform. It's definitely going to be worth your while. But obviously, Luke, like I said, I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Big Dog.
Sure, bro. And I appreciate you coming on, and